Welcome back. As everyone knows, school safety has been a huge issue ever since the Parkland shooting, and much of the talk revolving about how to protect kids. Some said arming teachers, especially in places outside of our viewing area. But closer to home, there are legitimate questions about who, in fact, is protecting our kids. In New Jersey, an investigation by The Record and USA Today uncovered issues in the Palisades Park school district. Now, the report says that armed guards were hired without submitting resumes or, for that matter, even undergoing background checks. And two of the guards, they were carrying handguns after their permits had already expired. The report goes on to explain why background checks are so important. Quote, a review of news reports, borough documents, and court records have found that some of the guards, all of whom are retired police officers, were accused in the past of serious indiscretions, including aggravated assault, police brutality, lying to authorities, and threatening public officials with retaliation. Now, there are accusations of favoritism, and the State Department of Education is looking into the matter. And joining me now, staff writer for The Record and NorthJersey.com, Steve Janoski. And Steve, already this story has prompted a whole bunch of questions, and as I understand, some hearings on this. So take us back a little bit here, because maybe I could start with Henry Rue, this councilman, because he seems to be at the root of all this. Who is this guy, and what did he and did he not do that he should have?
Well, he's a councilman for Palisades Park. He was a police captain for a long time with the borough, and when he was pretty much the driving force behind creating this team of guards. Statutorily, though, the responsibility falls to the police chief, so one could say it was those two who are primarily responsible for making sure that they undergo their background checks and things like that. We had been tipped off earlier this year to a video where Henry had wanted to be the coordinator for this team of security guards, and when the school board rejected that, we had a video that showed him threatening to pull funding for that program because he was angry about being rejected. And so that prompted our investigation, and as we started looking into it and requesting things, more and more records started coming back with, no, these records don't exist, and for background checks and things like that. So that's pretty much how we got started.
So, lest anybody think that this is ticky-tack stuff here, there are some serious indiscretions to the guards here that Rue helped put together this outfit. Get into some of them, including one of them was a connection to even a burglary ring that people remember from in the Palisades Park community.
Yeah, some of these guys, we should be clear, none of them were convicted of crimes. We're unclear on how a lot of these cases were resolved because they were so long ago. But Henry's brother, Lawrence, who he voted to hire, was named but never charged in a Palisades Park police-led burglary ring that victimized residents, merchants, over the course of about 4 years in the mid-90s, and stole an estimated $250,000 worth of goods and money from residents. So effectively, the department, members of the department were casing houses and then robbing those houses and then responding to those robberies the next day after they were called in. Not a good thing. And again, Larry Rue was never charged for any of this, but one of the ringleaders eventually turned into a state's witness and said that Rue had helped plan robberies and had executed a few robberies himself, and he also had a history of being a little violent on the street, allegedly, from the complaints that we had.
And if you look at some of the other ones, we identified some of it. It's not to litigate their backgrounds, but the idea that you're going to have people armed in schools with kids. They didn't even submit resumes. They didn't go through background checks. Is it your sense that this is an unbelievable story, but isolated to strictly this district? Or do you think in other districts where you have armed guards in schools, the vetting may not be as thorough as parents think?
Well, Palisades Park is sort of a special case because it is sort of an old school New Jersey town, and we've had issues with nepotism there and things like that before. Is it possible that it happens in other towns? Sure, it is. I mean, there's different degrees of guards, and different degrees of guards undergo different degrees of scrutiny.
These are class 3, right?
No, well, some of them are class 3s. Some towns hire class 3s. Other towns, like Palisades Park, just hire security guards, and then they create the standards to which they hold those guards. So there's less leeway for problems if they're class 3 officers, but when they're armed guards that the town seems to be hiring on its own, yeah, there's a chance that this could happen. We don't have any proof of that, but except for Palisades Park and the things that have gone on there.
So is it enough to say, hey, it's this councilman that screwed up royally here, or should there have been more oversight? You mentioned that the police chief should have been involved in this process. Clearly he wasn't. The state doesn't run this. At the end, to make sure something like this doesn't happen, where should the buck stop, and who should be involved in these decisions?
You could say that it's the public officials in general. I mean, the town council seemed to have relied on the word of Henry Rue that all these background checks had been done. The police department, the police chief himself, was supposed to do the background checks and appoint officers to oversee this program. That doesn't appear to ever have been done. But also the school board itself never, they say that they asked for them, but I mean, this program was going on for 4 months inside the schools without the school board members ever seeing the background checks or having any proof that they happened. Any sort of documents that have surfaced have only surfaced in the last few days, so they let that go also. So really there's probably enough blame to go around.
Finally, since you did this report, obviously a lot of people are being asked some tough questions. What do you think comes out of this? What's going to change here? People going, they're going to be shown the door? Give me where you think this all ends up.
It's tough to say because you never know how these things are going to work out, and it's Palisades Park, so we're unsure. But we think maybe a closer eye will be paid. The town council and also the school board have called for their own investigations. The school board last night approved an investigation into the whole program and then also pulled 2 of the guards from the schools until that investigation is done. Certain town council members have said that they would like an investigation to happen also. How that ends, we couldn't tell you yet.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Steve, great reporting. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, everyone, so please stay with us.